Okay, we are live. What's up? Check it out. This is my guy. Actually, I'm gonna let him introduce himself. I'm very happy to have him on. This guy has a lot of history. I've been watching this guy, and I'm really excited. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Alan Collinge. I'm founder of studentloanjustice.org, the first, oldest, and largest, and really only true grassroots group in the country fighting only and absolutely for student loan borrowers. I'm running for president as a fiercely independent candidate. And if you have student loans, I strongly recommend that you support my campaign now and through November.
After this interview is over, I'm definitely gonna brush up on some of this stuff here. There's actually a petition that I signed a long time ago. It's kind of the granddaddy of all student loan petitions, right? Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years. For the first 17 years of our existence, studentloanjustice.org, we were fighting very moderately, only for the return of standard constitutional bankruptcy rights to student loans. Well, around 2018 or so, it became very obvious that the entire federal student loan program is in catastrophic failure. And that was before COVID. So right as COVID was starting, I started a petition calling for the cancellation of all federally owned student loan debt by executive order, as well as the return of bankruptcy protections to all student loans, because the president can't cancel all student loans by executive order. So I started this petition in March 2020. We've gotten 1.2 million signatures, most of them in that first 8 or 9 months. But, this was many, many months before Elizabeth Warren or Chuck Schumer or anyone, in fact, anyone in the country was talking about canceling student loans by executive order. So I'm thrilled that actually became an issue both in the presidential election and beyond. I'm very unthrilled, very frankly disgusted with what I saw both parties in Congress and in the presidential races do with it. They essentially wrecked the issue. And so at this point, having watched the Democrats and the Republicans in action for many, many, many years, I can tell you that neither Joe Biden nor Donald Trump has any desire or intentions of actually solving the federal student loan program. And so, I'm always thinking, what can I do to solve this problem? And at this point, literally the only thing that makes any sense to me is to throw my hat in for the presidential race and offer a credible threat to both existing parties. And I don't mean just the Democrats. We're not a spoiler campaign. We're not out to get Trump elected. In fact, more people with student loans are either Republicans or independent than they are.
Wait, hello? Alan, you froze right there, yeah? Okay, maybe something happened to his connection. He was right there. Okay, you're back. Okay, thank goodness. Okay.
So we can, as crazy as it may sound, we can actually win this election. There are over and co-signers.
I don't know what's happening with the connection, bro. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Hey, but I'm just don't worry about. I'm gonna hold it down. Just so you know. Alan's been actually an activist on this one particular topic for 20 years. Usually I do ask people how they started their activist journey or how they started their political journey. This may be the start, but just even if there is a different start to it, we really do that to try to find a base. I really asked that question to find a baseline for what their true passion is. But the fact that he's done this for 20 years would actually almost overwrite whatever what got him the first thing into politics. But we're going to ask that in a moment. But we're going to let you keep going on. We were just...
my final point. There are 40 million people losing sleep. They will never be able to repay their student loans in the country right now. These people vote. And if we can attract a significant percentage of them to this campaign, that puts us in way above Ross Perot territory. That puts us with an actual shot at having a viable campaign. So,
yeah.
Student loan borrowers unite.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is that I'm really a huge fan of what you're doing right now. The fact of the matter is that the students, unfortunately, are kind of getting what they deserve because they're not mobilizing. You're doing exactly what needs to be done, right? Yeah. Let's be real, right? Yeah, the millionaires, right? The people who own the schools and all that stuff, they're paying these politicians millions. if you don't do anything, you can't overcome that. All right. So exactly what this guy's been doing. He's been plugging away 20 years, right? Like, plenty of times he could have stopped, plenty of times he could have sold out. I'm sure the school system making a lot of money. Shut up, Alan. Here's some money. Never sold out. Still on the same plan. You'll love it, bro. For real. Yeah. So we're getting back to the actual, like, the interview as scheduled, right? Yeah, this is actually the same questions to all the candidates. To really get to know them, the first half is to ask them about themselves. The next half is to actually ask about the policies. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, how did it all begin? What's the first political thing you ever did?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not a politician. All my degrees are in aerospace engineering. I was an aeronautical scientist at Caltech after graduation, working on turbulence theory. And life is funny, life is strange. I had my own student loans, and I found myself completely screwed by the federal student loan program shortly after leaving my position at Caltech. And as fate would have it, I wound up directing a regional. I was regional director of a national loan program on behalf of the Department of Transportation. So I was working with small, disadvantaged, minority-owned businesses, and so I learned a lot about finance, in particular government finance. Well, what I saw happen with my student loans, I knew there was something gone horribly awry. So I started doing research. And what I found was jaw-dropping. The corruption, the kickbacks, the illegal relationships. So I started talking to reporters. I talked to Bethany McLean, who's the reporter who broke the Enron story over the course of a year, feeding her my stuff. She wound up doing a front page article in Fortune magazine, and that pretty quickly became me being the featured guest on the top story on 60 Minutes in 2006. So that was sort of my big splash in the public conversation. And, quite frankly, I only thought this was going to be about a 2-year project. My group was credited with being the inspiration for Hillary Clinton's Student Borrower Bill of Rights Act in 2007. The 60 Minutes piece inspired many government investigations that was literally the biggest higher education scandal in the United States. And Ted Kennedy's final piece of legislation was based on the results of those investigations. Many different pieces of legislation our group has inspired, particularly bankruptcy legislation in the past 5 years, Senator Dick Durbin and others. But, as I said, I thought this was going to be a 2-year thing, and here we are almost 20 years later, and the problem has not been solved. The problem is as bad as it has ever been. The loans are predatory. The loans are unconstitutional. The loans cannot continue. And the pandemic was the nail in the coffin. And it is time to bring both parties to task on this, because right now that COVID is over with, despite what you may read in the fake news, and I'm talking about the New York Times, it's not 60% of borrowers are repaying their loans, as is currently being reported. It's 80% of federal student loan borrowers are not making payments on their loans. So the overwhelming majority of student loan borrowers are currently not one of them. Yeah, they're not able to make payments. And there's so many misconceptions. I could go on forever and ever. This is not a younger person's issue. It truly is not. People over the age of 50 outnumber, which I am now. People over the age of 50 outnumber people under the age of 25 with student loans. People over the age of 35 outnumber people under the age of 35. This is, and I know that you're sort of wagging your finger at the students, but think about when we were in college.
No, I'm mad at the schools. They charge so much for education. Why the hell do they? It's obscene. No, I'm not mad at.
I know, but I agree with you.
For the first charge this much, are you serious? We're sitting in a classroom, you're showing a YouTube video, and you're charging. Yo, I'm serious. Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, there's no way.
It's become absolutely.
I swear to God, you got 1,000 people paying $1,000 each, and they play on a YouTube video. I swear to God.
Exactly. And the colleges have been sitting in the catbird seat, and behind the scenes, the colleges are fighting to keep. The founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution. The colleges behind the scenes are fighting to keep the right of bankruptcy away from these loans. You can declare bankruptcy on any loans in this country, any loans, and almost any debt. Uniquely, this has been stripped from student loans, and the colleges love that. The Department of Education loves that.
I'm sure you know about this stuff. You're mad deep in stuff. What do they do with that money?
Oh man! Drive by any college, large or small, and what do you see? You see construction cranes. You see brand new buildings. You see Class A architecture, marble. You see massive bloat at the administrative level, college salaries. You see college stadiums, and increasingly.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a another unreported fact. The colleges have begun stockpiling cash over and above their endowments.
Harvard has more than some countries.
Well, that's Harvard's endowment is roughly $40 billion last time I checked. But even apart, separate from these endowments, nearly all of the colleges are socking away money in. Look at the balance sheet of your college. Look at the annual report of your college. Look at the unreserved and reserved assets, and you will see that since 2005, those two categories have exploded by usually billions of dollars. Sometimes
Let me tell you two things that kind of erupted more recently, right? Yeah. I also know because of my experience in the medical field, right? So the thing is that colleges are also kind of like acquiring a lot of real estate, especially public housing real estate. Then what happens is that they, because they're owned by a university, they're tax free. So they buy publicly funded like housing, right? Yeah. Then they turn it into the thing and make boatloads of money, no taxes paid. Not only this, they also have this other scheme where, besides the public housing they take over, they also invested money in the stock market, right? Like dead serious. Like they are really taking this stuff and putting it into financial markets.
You know, they really people say, Harvard is really just a hedge fund that does a little teaching on the side, and
they're no longer educational institutions; they're financial institutions. That's why they're bankrupting our children. They keep charging up for information. When you buy the books, it's a scam. Like, thank God for actors like yourself. Yeah. Okay. So
absolutely. And it's gone to the point where, as I said, like literally even before the pandemic, 85% of all borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. And so everything is broken. The colleges have run this scam into the ground along with the Department of Education and the lenders.
They also take care of the medical field here, like NYU, right? They
colleges run colleges run hospitals, they're little real estate tycoons, on and on and on. The number of financial scams that run through colleges is just absolutely astounding, and they ought to all be ashamed of themselves. And I don't know what they're thinking, but they're sort of eating their seed corn, because these students that they're wrecking, they're not going to donate to colleges later on in life.
I hate them.
People imperil my whole entire financial life. Why would I give money to you? So my agenda, number one, the federal student loan program is finished. It's got to be ended. I will cancel every nickel of federally owned student loans, and I'll do it by executive order. Joe Biden Joe Biden did not use the right law to cancel these loans. He did not use the Higher Education Act, Section 1082, parentheses 6, which gives the secretary very broad, wide authority to.
So what do you do? What do you do when Anna Kasparian says, "Oh, but I paid my student loan"? What are you gonna tell her?
Hey, to people who paid their loans in years or decades past, I applaud them. I congratulate them. This is no longer their problem. And they can be mad at if they want. I'm sure there was a few slaves back in 1865 who had spent their whole life in bondage, and they sort of resented the younger people who were freed. But the fact of the matter is, the lending system is finished. It's failed by all rational metrics. It cannot and it will not continue. My best guess is that a year from now, it's not going to be 80% not paying. It's going to be 90%, maybe even 100%.
We've already talked about a bunch of legendary work, straight up, yeah. You have 20 years in the game. What achievement are you most proud of? Oh my goodness, yeah.
I've got a lot of honors and awards and titles and so on and so forth. I was mentioned one of 8 financial heroes by CNN for the very critical year of 2008 during as a result of the home mortgage crisis and all the financial crisis that went on. I don't know. There's so much to mention. A lot of the media work I've done. I'm probably proudest of all the interviews that I've done on Fox News, quite frankly. I like going into the lion's den, and I like talking to conservatives who don't know their ass from third base on this issue. And they go, oh, you need to pay your loans. Why should the taxpayer have to pay your loans? The fact of the matter is the taxpayer has made a king's ransom on these loans. And unlike PPP loans, every nickel of federally owned student loan debt could be canceled today. And the taxpayer would be breaking about even because the people have paid, and they have paid and paid, and they have paid through the nose. The government is running $100 billion a year profit on the federal student loan program. $100 billion a year in interest accrues to the Department of Education, the taxpayer. So these people that wag their fingers and they go, oh, I hate the colleges and I hate the government, they are actually fighting for those two very same things. They're fighting for the cash cow of the government, of the colleges. The hypocrisy, including in Congress, is mind-numbing. So I love going in the lion's den. I love going onto Fox News and mixing it up with our opposition. I've won every argument I've ever had on this battle. I have always won every time ever. And so now, our opposition runs from us. They don't want to get in an engaged debate with us because
interesting. I
destroy them every time. Sorry,
okay.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Interesting. You should say opposition, because the thing is that now it's do you have a certain political ideology? Some people say socialist, capitalist, centrist, conservative, right?
I was born and raised sort of a blue collar Democrat.
Okay.
And I stuck with that for quite some time. But, the past 20 years have informed me that both parties are finished. Both parties are captured and corrupted. And despite the pleasant sounding rhetoric you may hear from the Democrats, last congressional session proves that the Democrats are defending the federal student loan program as much as the Republicans are. It's just for whatever reason, the rhetoric
all the money
is different. Well,
they both love the money.
It's a money thing.
No to the money, yeah.
The prospect, like what government agency makes a profit? Does the Department of Defense make a profit? No. Does the Department of Housing make a profit? HHS? No. No federal agency makes a profit on anything except for the Department of Education and on this lending program. I think
just so you know, the lady who's going to be doing the town hall, right? We have actually on President's Day, we're going to have a president's forum and debate with other presidential candidates. I think Alan's agreed to be there. The lady who's going to be doing the town hall meeting portion of the section is actually a victim of university administration abuse. And I've been telling her that I've been telling about you, but you didn't reply to the email. I was like, oh, this guy, Alan Collinge, I think would be perfect for you. And then she was like, but now I just took him today. I sent her an email earlier. I was like, yo, Alan, I got him on Facebook. Yeah. So I think I'm sure she'll be excited to meet you.
I'd be very happy to talk to her, and I could just beg and plead everybody out there. There are good candidates out there that don't have a D or an R by the name. In fact, I have to say, why would anyone vote for a D or an R at this point?
So you're not Democratic, not Republican, but do you have an ideology, socialist, capitalist? I don't know, whatever.
I'm more of a practical guy, and I look out in the world and I look for injustice and unfairness. Okay. And I look at wealth disparity as being the number one problem in this country. The elite capture of our government, of our media, the massive disparity in wealth that we see now. Our federal debt
let's find a way to really help focus that with. Sometimes people have someone who's been influential to their politics or their style of management or whatever. Who's been influential to yourself? If there is one.
I was thinking about this question. I don't have any great answers for you there, unfortunately. I respect people like Teddy Roosevelt for standing up to the trusts. I appreciate FDR, not so much for what he did during the war, although he's a great wartime president, but rather in 1945,
locking up Japanese people. That was whack.
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Good point. I'm not a big fan there, obviously. But FDR had the cojones with Congress and the administrative state that was in place at that time to put the heavy on the wealthy in this country. In 1945, we started taxing the richest people in this country at 90+%. Think of that. Today, the wealthiest in the country pay 28 or something percent? 90%. And for 18 years. So it's not just FDR. We're talking through Truman, through Eisenhower, through Kennedy. we were taxing the wealthiest people in this country at over 90%.
And can I just I really shouldn't, but I'm gonna kick in my own little thought here. Yeah. The
Yeah.
thing is that these rich people over here, right? Yeah. It's kind of like unfair to them because what happens is that when you give them so much money, they're forced to go into battle with each other and they waste a lot of the money fighting each other, right? Yeah. Honestly, do you really, right? Do you need like a billion? Do you really? You're a human being. Yeah, like, maybe some more, right? I get it. Some people more productive, but damn, like that for real? Come on,
Nobody
man.
earns
Come on. That's
nobody
bullshit.
earns $1
Yeah.
billion. Like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't even see that a guy could really earn. Maybe 100 million is probably the upper limit of what a guy can actually earn, in my humble opinion. But I agree with you. The wealthy don't need that wealth. They don't use the wealth well. They hoard it
I don't think it's,
mostly.
but in defense of them, what I was saying, like, yeah, like they're forced to play that game because we put them in a situation where they have all that stuff. What are they going to do with it? They're forced to go to war with each other. Why don't we just, if as society we were more intelligent by the way we distribute things, we wouldn't have this imbalance that causes,
Well, that's exactly right. And as you say, the wealthy battle each other. That's certainly true. So they shouldn't feel bad if all of the wealthy people in the United States are taxed the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's fair.
It's like,
then, right?
I hate you. I'm trying to take over your shit. We both are being taxed roughly the same rate. So I have less, you have less. We can still fight, right? They still have many very important levers of power. It's like Elon Musk is not going to lose Twitter if we take $75 billion off of his books. He's not going to lose Tesla. He's still going to have a lot of entrenched power, but it's just the actual cash will not be there. The combined net worth of the wealthiest 1% of this country is $38 trillion. So my tax plan is to return to post-World War II tax rates for as long as it takes to get our federal budget under control, pay down our national debt. That's not the only way I'm going to do it. I'm also going to reduce spending because, the Republicans have a point. We spend way too much on stupid things. Starting, I think most people would agree, on defense, but across the board, I think we need to see across the board agency cuts, 10 to 15%. After World War II, we cut our spending by 70+%. So I don't want to cut spending that much. I think a trim is more reasonable. But if we can increase our tax revenue by $1.5 or $2 trillion a year, we can definitely decrease our spending by, I'd say, about $1 trillion a year. Well, suddenly we're running budget surpluses. And the only way that starts is by taxing the wealthy. If it was good enough for Eisenhower and Truman and FDR and up through Nixon and really ending with Reagan, it's good enough for this country. We've solved this problem before, and people need to quit being distracted because half the things that we see on the news today are seeded purposely to keep us distracted, fighting the culture wars. And meanwhile, the bottom line of the wealthy in this country remains unchanged, and it's unsustainable, can't continue.
I understand. Okay, that's good to know. So let's move on now to some policy questions. Now, the thing is that I like to ask questions about my partners first. I like to put my partners first all the time. It's good for business. All right, let's get to the first one, right? Yeah. How do you feel about the freedom of Assange?
Oh, good point. Of my non-economic issues, I think internet freedom, privacy, freedom of speech, internet censorship, and internet surveillance is of penultimate importance. I would drop all charges against Assange. I would probably give Ed Snowden, which is what he asked for, what Snowden wants, is a jury trial in the United States. I would consider a pardon if Snowden was convicted and given a ridiculous term in prison. I would consider pardoning him. I think that the free exchange of information is very important, particularly when the federal government is breaking the law. And, privacy is so important. The founding fathers put it number 4 in the Bill of Rights. And I just have to say that we are under great threat right now. I will probably look to experts like a friend of mine, Matt Taibbi, other reporters. I've worked with the media very closely for the past 20 years. Some very smart reporters out there, and I will be leaning on those.
I'm at war with a lot of reporters, but Matt Taibbi's cool with me.
Oh,
I got no problem with that, but I'm at war with so many
95% of the reporters out there are garbage. I call them prostitutes.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the big names as well, the big name channels, the New York Times, the Washington Post. They're just garbage. They're propaganda at this point, certainly on the student loan issue, but as well on other issues. Very concerned about internet privacy, censorship, surveillance. Big fan of what Assange tried to do.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I've asked over every single candidate since the beginning of the series about this, so it's been a nice little collection. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next topic. I did have some affiliation with the Yang Gang. That's another story right there. But how do you feel about UBI?
UBI to me is problematic. Anytime you're talking about a non-earned income, it becomes very open to abuse. I tend to be pretty libertarian, and anything that I see that creates a new government bureaucracy where they're picking and choosing and they're given the instrument of control over people, I see red flags everywhere. What I would much rather see is a dramatic increase in the minimum wage. $15 an hour, that was 15 years ago.
I'm glad you made that point, because actually this really does open up, like, because before, right, you were like, we got to tax the rich more. So that's going to be like a huge influx of money because they're really hoarding a lot of wealth. So we take all the money. Now the government has it. Now what does the government do with it?
Well, unfortunately, we have to pay down our debt with the vast majority of that. But certainly we will have ample funding to make sure that things like Social Security are solvent, Medicare solvent. I would like to take a strong step towards universal health care by lowering the qualification age for Medicare to 50 years old. I think that would solve a lot of problems. We could maybe go further depending on how the tax revenues look.
For the first time in U.S. history, the lifespan is getting shorter.
Yeah,
that might be a appropriate adjustment right there.
We'll have to see if that's a COVID thing or whether that's
crazy.
Yeah,
to think about that. Whoa, that's crazy.
And
can you imagine moving it back? Whoa, that's crazy.
I don't think we've ever done that before. I'm not sure whether that's COVID or what it is, but in general, I don't think the federal government is very good at doing a lot of things. For example, I would end the federal student loan program and I would replace it. The government still has a part to play, but I think we should probably go back to funding the universities directly. The government has no business being in the lending business. The federal government does many things very poorly. And so there's a lot of issues that, unfortunately, I probably won't be a big fan of. That's sort of my libertarian leanings there, but
that's good. Yeah, I'm actually, you see this right here? What does it say right there?
I actually can't see that.
Oh, it says libertarian.
Oh, libertarian. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you see the torch right there?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to enlarge my screen here.
How about this right here?
I'm all for efficient. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Oh, get out of here.
Expiring though, yeah. But
well, I think
I'm a member. It's going to expire though. If you want to buy me a membership at the Libertarian Party, please do so. Yeah, thank you. I ain't paying no more. I want someone to pay. Yeah, I ain't paying no more.
The problem with the libertarians is they have been completely captured by Texas millionaires and billionaires. What they want are no laws for them.
Oh my God, it's not being talked about. You're so right. Oh my. This is
it's disgusting. We're like, hey, freedom, my freedom, right. Bitch.
You're
talking about student loans. You talk about the people who oppose student loan cancellation. We're talking about the very exact same crowd. It's disgusting. Texas millionaires and billionaires.
Thanks for putting it out there, man. Yo, like this is not known. This is not talked about. This is vital. This is what I'm all about, right? This is what I've been on. Anyways, let's go to the next question over here. Another group that I am actually working with is the trans community. So I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question here, okay? So we know that trans people face a lot of discrimination in the job. I get it. I'm not saying I support it, but I get it, right? They're different. They also face a lot of discrimination, like finding housing, right? I get that too. So let's say that we have public housing, and then 10% of the people applying for public housing are trans, but only 2% of the people in public housing are trans. So we talk to trans people, say, hey, what's going on with you? Like, why do you think there's a disparity? And they say, oh, we're getting discriminated against, blah, blah, blah. So if this community, right, whether you agree with them or not, right, yeah, if these people, how will you? There's no law saying that you can discriminate against them. How will you assure these people fair access to government services?
Honestly, I'm gonna honestly tell you that I need to take a pass on that issue, and I'll tell you why.
That's okay. Yeah, that's
Um,
okay. That's fair.
I think it's a new issue. I'm not sure what sort of evidence there is of discrimination and what laws need to be created to correct that. I just don't see it. I think it's a newer issue, but there's a deeper reason. I'm probably going to offend you and others on this.
That's fine.
I look out in the world and I see a whole bunch of cultural issues. These issues, like the trans issue, quite frankly, like gun control, like abortion, these issues do not impact the bottom line of the wealthiest in this country. Whichever way those arguments turn out, the wealthy love us arguing about them so that we aren't talking about taxing the wealthy and getting our money back for this party they've had on the back of our country for many, many years. And so, and also, I just don't see a strong role that the federal government and the president can play on that. I don't think Abraham Lincoln or others had much to say at all about abortion or other. I mean, the federal government is no good at that. And so whatever your position on those issues are, unfortunately, whatever I'm not going to be your passionate president on one way or the other of that issue. There's another practical reason I neglect the issue is that, quite frankly, I don't see the Democrats and the Republicans putting a bill across the president's desk in the next 4 years or 8 years, for that matter, on that issue.
Yeah.
The Democrats just lost Roe v. Wade. Where was the bill at Biden's desk his first 2 years in office to correct that? There was no bill. So the Democrats are pimping this problem. The Republicans are pimping this problem. And, I just don't want to feed fuel into that fire. I will say my final answer on that is if abortion, other issues, other cultural issues that I resent the wealthy people for stoking the national conversation with, if a bill does come across my desk, I will err on the side of individual liberty. And that's
there is narrative manipulation going on. And actually, I do appreciate I do have some agreements. I do feel like the media is purposely pushing this at this time to distract. I do feel like that's part of it. Yeah, I do think there is they call it moral panic, that type of thing. But so, all right, okay, I guess I could get it right. In the end, it's your choice to answer the question as you wish. I don't think it's a bad answer. So, people could think what they want.
I also don't want to scare away half of my base, because my base are student loan borrowers.
I understand where people might feel offended about it, but I also understand where, everybody has the right to think what they think. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the worst.
I oppose discrimination in all of its forms. That I think goes without question.
Yeah, you haven't seen anything like they should all go to the dogs. That'd be horrible, right? Yeah, so appreciate that. Yeah, anyways,
there's enough people. You can go to any other channel and watch Rush. Anybody you want to find either side of that issue. That's not me.
No, I do think there is some truth to that. The thing is that these people were trans 10 years ago and wasn't it's being pushed now. There's a media, they're doing it on purpose, and it's BS. So you're right. I am bringing up, but I've just been around people, so I'll always be their friend.
I hear you, man. Yeah, similarly, a lot of people.
But you get what I mean? Because I feel like they're under attack, I feel like jumping in front and be helping them a little bit. You know what I mean? Anyways, yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's go into the next one. The disabilities community is another group that I help, and the thing is that right now they're allowed to be paid sub-minimum wage. Now the thing is that we know that minimum wage is often tied to a certain standard of living. And would you support, right? Maybe it takes federal subsidies if they can't be productive or something like that. I know you're generally libertarian, but would you support at least minimum wage for that standard of living for people that are disabled?
I think absolutely. I think anybody who is working should be subject to the minimum wage, which should be raised to about $22 an hour, quite frankly. I think for my campaign, I haven't rolled it out yet. I'll probably go $25 an hour with the way things are going. But if we can actually get $21 or $2 an hour, I think that's fair. And, I don't want to talk bad about nonprofits, but some of the nonprofits of today, they're typically not your soup kitchens and your orphanages and these good people doing good things for
there you go.
They're
Yeah, you know.
scheming bastards like the Goodwill. You know what the Goodwill does? They take handicapped people, they pay them nothing to work in their stores, and they get the government to subsidize their income, and they pay no tax. It's a racket. I know a racket. Student loans are a racket, and the entire 501c whatever population has
The
become
not-for-profit industrial complex.
Oh, it's a complete racket. Some of the
Yeah.
most, in fact, the most ruthless student loan company in the country, ECMC. They are a non-profit. They pay no taxes. Their lawyers who defeat student loan borrowers in bankruptcy court are getting their loans canceled through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Like, no, we've got to completely revisit. I don't know that I'll make this a part of my campaign, but we need to completely overhaul the nonprofit law.
They're like the only ones because such a few percentage of them actually get that program, and it's so ironic. I bet you it's on purpose. That's why they're the ones who getting it, right? Almost no teachers get it forgiven. Who do you know? You know because you're around this, right? Who got
only
it
the people who are the most
nobody gets it forgiven.
Only the people who are the most anal, administratively astute, and like lawyers will find their way through public service. It's just a racket. All of the government income-driven repayment plans are all rackets, where the large majority of people trying for them will not get their loans canceled. They will fall out of the program. Somewhere north of 90% of the people in income-driven repayment, so public service, income-based, the new SAVE plan will be no different. The Department of Education has no desire or intentions of canceling loans. They never have, they never will. And if you believe, you, the voters out there, believe the nonsense that Biden is blowing up your ass, just remember, he said he was going to cancel loans last time. Did he cancel loans? No. What Biden is doing is pointing to loans that a small percentage of loans that were canceled under existing programs, and he's claiming credit for it.
I have the insane T-shirt I want to show you. Maybe I'll wear it for the presidential debate. I have this insane T-shirt with Biden on it. You're gonna love it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, Biden is probably among all living, serving politicians. He deserves more credit than anyone for the student loan scam. The loans have been weaponized, and Biden, as a junior senator in the 1970s, was a surprisingly key guy in getting bankruptcy rights taken away from the loans. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy, guys, but when you take that right away, you give the lenders a license to steal. That's what Joe Biden started, and we are now seeing the end game of that.
I just want to say to all the Joe Biden defenders, okay? The fact of the matter is that you want this man to be president of the United States, okay? There's a video of him saying, I was graduated top of my class, all this other stupid lying stuff, okay? You want to say Trump is bad, right? I get that too, right? Grandma thing is not good, but this guy is lying like, oh my, how can you say this is a good idea? Come on, this is disgusting. Yeah, like, come on.
I just think that
find anything better than that. Seriously,
I just think that it's such a shame that we're given this choice. Like it's like the South Park episode. Do you want the turd sandwich or
that's ridiculous.
Whatever, the douche or whatever.
All right, okay. So the next one over here is the right to repair. Have you heard of something called right to repair?
I have heard of the right to repair. I thought about that fairly deeply at one point. I think I know what it is. I think it is very important for people to have control over that which they own. I think that, it gets difficult with technology because, like, what's the first thing that General Electric does when it builds something? It tries to find a way to modify it to make it so it can't be copied, can't be, they can control the whole life cycle system of that product. Cars are certainly the worst. So I think it's a very difficult issue, but I think some basic laws should probably be put in place that certainly allow people to fix the stuff that they can fix. Some stuff you can't fix. You can't rewrite software, really. It gets a little challenging when we're talking about more esoteric realms like software, but like cars and toasters, absolutely right to repair.
Okay. Let's go to the now we're going to go to like the larger issues at hand, and I know like maybe some of this is a distraction, but let's just cover some topics, or you can even just say like, if you want to take positions, that's fine, right? Yeah, you can do whatever you want here. So right now, probably the migrant thing is kind of like a big, like people talking, especially here in New York. What's your take on that whole thing?
I think the wealthy people kind of like that issue because it kind of doesn't really cost them that much money, but it is a very important problem. I lived in South Central Los Angeles for many years in heavily immigrant communities. I lived in Washington, D.C., in the bad part of Washington, D.C. for years. I've seen the problem. I've lived it. My neighborhood burned down during the Los Angeles riots when I was in college. And I'm very sorry to disappoint some people, but I think the Republicans have a point there. I don't think that Donald Trump would have been elected president if our borders were under control. I don't think it's too much to ask that we enforce the immigration laws that are on the books. Unchecked immigration winds up hurting people, the immigrants and the communities. I think it's the president's duty to enforce the borders. Now, was Donald Trump serious about doing it? No. I think Donald Trump was pimping the issue. He said he's going to build a wall. He built 47 miles of new wall. 47 miles. Don't believe the 500. It's nonsense. I'm not even sure that we need a wall. Donald Trump did not. We need enforcement, definitely. We cannot allow our borders to be overrun unchecked. We also have to come after visa overstays. That's half the problem. I don't know that Donald Trump did much, if anything, on that.
I've been saying that word up. The media's painting it one way. Exactly. There's a whole nother level to this that they don't talking about. Exactly.
That's exactly right. That's around half the problem, maybe even more than half. It was around half the last I checked. So we've got to get serious. I think Donald Trump was clearly onto something there, and I don't think he's wrong. I think, I couldn't go to Switzerland tomorrow, get a job in a restaurant, work under the table, get a flat. I could probably get away with that for a year or two, but eventually, they're going to come up to you and say, Mr. Collinge, you don't have papers. You can't be here. That's the way countries work. And so we've got to enforce our borders. However, we should probably look at increasing the legal immigration visas and other visas maybe that we issue every year. If, as it would appear, they are too low, maybe they need to be raised. And that's something that I would task Congress with.
All right, cool. All right. So the thing is that at education too, you hear about this DEI stuff, right? I know you're big in the education thing. Do you have any particular opinions on that?
Unfortunately, I think that issue is too fraught in the culture war battlefield for me to have anything meaningful to say. I will say this, that African Americans, I'm more a class guy than a race guy. African Americans absolutely suffer and have suffered historical disadvantages, hostility, discrimination since the Civil War. In fact, for 3 years, I worked in civil rights when I was running that lending program I was telling you about. I saw it firsthand.
Okay. Yeah,
Black people have we're not talking about, I'm sorry, but we're not, I don't see much discrimination with Asian Americans, with Indian Americans.
It's different.
We're talking about African Americans.
No, we do face discrimination, but it's different.
Okay. And
you're again, right, the poverty style, it's not really, we're not as numerous there, right? They are really packing the poverty services, which is, unfortunate.
Yes, and this is where I, particularly as a white guy, I don't want to bring lightning bolts into my eyeball. I'm more of a class guy than a race guy. I think what makes sense is looking at things from an economic perspective.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
it's
been pretty consistent with the rest of your answers, so no problem. I like that. Yeah, that's fair.
Should LeBron James get reparations? No, come on now.
Okay, so back to the I guess because you are running for the president and stuff, so that is interacting with the other countries and stuff in big ways. What's your ideas on trade? There's like TPP, NAFTA.
Great point.
What do you think about all that?
High up on my list is solving the national debt. The trade agreements that we are currently entered into are horrible for the United States. We need to revisit our relationships with, I think, nearly every country on the globe, in particular, China. Again, my agenda, it's not liberal, it's not conservative. I'm trying to draw the best from both sides. And Trump, again, had a point. China is on the verge of eating our lunch. China owes us a lot of money. China holds $1 trillion in U.S. bonds. But, China owes us, and again, I go back to World War II. China, the CCP would not exist but for massive lend-lease assistance from the United States in the 30s and 39, well, 40s on. And even before World War II, China sold many railroad bonds to U.S. citizens, and neither of those two categories were ever repaid. Now, I love China. I think everybody has to respect what China as a country has been able to do, particularly over the past 80 years. It's quite amazing. And the United States has enjoyed a great alliance, a great.
Just so you know, I'm actually Korean. I'm not Chinese. Just
oh, okay, right.
I'm not Chinese at all. Yeah.
I'm only speaking as an American.
It's all good. No, I understand where you're coming from. It's fine.
I watch World War II documentaries
sense,
like
I'm
2 hours a night. So we've had a great relationship with China up to this point, but China owes us. China owes us for the pandemic. How much do they owe us for the pandemic? A lot. It's hard to put a number on, but and people say, oh, well, America was also involved in that. If China had funded research in the United States and we let it out of a U.S. lab in Nebraska, for example, then the United States would be liable. That didn't happen. China failed to control the coronavirus, period. They owe us. They owe every country.
But I think it was the U.S. that was. I think the U.S.
I'm not saying there
was doing stuff over there.
Yeah, I'm not saying there wasn't complicity.
They do it over there because it's low cost. They want to do it cheap, and also they do it over there because they don't want to have the risk blow up in the United States. So they're like, oh, let's put the dangerous weapons manufacturing in their country. Like
that's right.
It's going to happen. You know,
all of that could be true. However, at the end of the day, in the final analysis, it was a Chinese-run, Chinese government-controlled lab where it appears strongly that virus escaped from. Even if it was a natural thing, China still failed to contain it. But come on, let's be honest, it was allowed.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, so
China owes us for that. China owes the entire world for that. As a matter of fact, my thought is that we'll take it in trade. I think that instead of 1 to 6 empty to full container ratio, empty containers being shipped back to China so they can fill them up and sell us stuff, I think we need to be exporting far more goods and services, not services, goods, agricultural, other commodities to China. We've got to balance that trade big time. I also would like to see China tear up the $1 trillion in U.S. bonds that it holds. Quite frankly, I'd like to see China make good on those long-time defaulted debts that U.S. Bondholders were jilted on. I would kind of like to see them make some attempt to repay us on Lend-Lease too, but
I'm open. I'll just be honest with you though. I think China looks at U.S. with with some amount of like envy because they think that U.S. has more money, and I think that they also are kind of like feeling some kind of resentment. Like, so, right, whether it's right or wrong, yeah, like it's like
I think China has great reason to be very proud in what they have accomplished with their country. It is amazing. Most
yeah. So I'm just telling you, well, okay, so like the thing is that right,
they might
go right.
China has never declared the CCP has never declared war on any other country. They are by and large a peaceful country.
But do you think that China would be like okay with saying like, oh well, we did mess up with coronavirus, so we've got to give you this stuff? I don't really see them right, their side or not their side. I don't really see anybody really saying, you know what, okay, we messed up, so we owe you some money. Like
I think that there are hard.
That, though.
I think there are
a negotiating tactic. I'm not mad at that.
It's a negotiating tactic. There are hard and soft levers of power and lines of communication between the nations. I think we can sort it out. Quite frankly, I kind of don't want to make.
You're the president. I'm down to play that game. I'll rock with you. I'm an American.
I think it's got to be on the table.
I'm not anti-China, but
China has a very. China has a very.
Go ahead, you my boy. We're Americans. Let's go for it. Yeah, let's.
China has a very long memory. They remember.
I don't want to have any predatory deals though, but fair deals. If they do something, then we'll keep that in the back pocket. You know what I mean? I ain't mad.
I just think it needs to be on the table. I think Lend-Lease allowed the CCP to even exist, and I would maybe even say the same thing for Taiwan. Quite frankly, because we Lend-Lease both to Kai-shek and to Mao.
Just last thing I want to say on that is just being Korean American. I often, like you said, the press is for sale earlier, right? Yeah. So maybe it came out from. It looks like it did, honestly, right? Yeah, but I won't believe. Maybe someone else could have brought it. I don't believe nothing. You know what I mean? Like it could have been, right? Yeah, and honestly, it does. I understand why it would look that way, but with even within what's going on here, so much is covered up. Like I just literally learned, like and just going with Korean and watching. I mean, you know spring chicken yourself. You've been in the act for 20 years, but you know what I'm talking about. So much is
That's right. In fact, maybe I'll be embarrassed in a couple of years looking at this interview and I'm pointing to these news reports saying, "Oh, it was a lab leak. It was a lab leak." Well, I haven't been briefed in. I can only go by the best information I have available to me, and I've got a very cynical eye with everything that I see in the media because certainly on the student loan issue, 90+% is nonsense. So yeah, that's something that neither you and I are going to solve here today. But I do think America needs to look out for its interests. I think Donald Trump, and I think this is actual fact, Donald Trump softened his stance on Taiwan right around the very same time that the Trump family was granted very valuable trademarks in China. He ate chocolate cake with Xi Jinping, and the Trump family benefited. I don't see how America benefited out of that deal. There's a lot of things that Trump says versus what he does that I've got a lot of very strong questions about. Similar for Biden, but you got to really hit Trump on both the border and on China.
Your audience, you actually shout out to got a couple of people your watchers tuned in. I appreciate you guys for watching. Yeah, I do be saying a lot. Yeah, it's all good though. But I'm enjoying this. Yeah, so sorry about that, folks. It is what it is.
I'm talking too much. I probably am.
No, they're saying they're mad at me. They're mad at me, right? Yeah.
No, I enjoy the conversation.
Can you see the screen? It says Peaches and Dream says, would you, the interviewer, allow Alan to speak without interrupting? And it's not just Peaches and Cream. It's
also you can interrupt me all you want.
It's also affordable audio and video saying, interviewer, please let Alan finish your thoughts. So, hey, if two people said there's got to have something to it. I am mad. Yeah.
I've been on Fox News. I've been in the Lion's Den. I've been through the Crucible. I think you're doing I like your interviewing style.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Cool. All right. So let's move on to as in terms of like the big things that the U.S. spends its money on, right? The military, we already talked to some about that. Let's talk about that for a second, right? Yeah. We have the Israel-Palestine thing going on, and we also have the Russia-Ukraine thing going on. Those are the biggest topics. What do you feel about those things?
I'm going to take the FDR approach. FDR stayed out of World War II for as long as he possibly could. Any aid that we give to Israel or Ukraine, and Israel is a longtime ally of ours. I'm not so sure that Israel really even wants our aid, but in as much as they want additional aid over and above what we've historically given them, I think it should be as a lend-lease transaction, similar for Ukraine. And in fact, if you look at most of the aid we've sent to Ukraine, it has been lend-lease. So these are two different countries, two very different set of circumstances. But my philosophy is to stay out of foreign entanglements. And if there's any way possible for the U.S. to find a way to not spend money, in fact, maybe even make money out of the deal, that's what we need to do. That's what FDR did. That's what Wilson and that's what we did in World War I. I think that's a formula for success. I think shoveling money to be pissed away into the deserts of Iraq, Afghanistan, now Ukraine, possibly Israel. Although I don't think Israel really needs too much of our help. It's exactly the wrong thing to do. That's disgusting. It's exactly what President Eisenhower warned us against.
As someone who's a Korean American with very similar story to Israel-Palestine, after World War II, other countries came in and decided, right, who our leadership was going to be and played all kinds of games right there. I do actually like Alan's approach. A lot of people say, do this, do that. I think that just staying out of there is probably the best idea. I don't know about immediate withdrawal. There's probably, because the situation has been created where there's a mess that needs to be, stabilized, I guess, before you leave. But I appreciate that line. And one thing that's not heard of in this anti-war movement is war victims who really have our own perspective. So thank you for that. And I'm glad you reached that conclusion, even without really maybe you could talk to other war victims, but maybe I appreciate that, or maybe you have your own experience. What
Well,
country do you have ethnicity?
my ethnicity,
Yeah.
Norwegian and English.
Okay. All
Norwegian and
right. So,
English.
is there any history of like conflict going on over there, or?
No, I mean, there's England. We all know about England's conquering past. But the Norwegians have always been a pretty quiet people. They and my family came to the north, and we migrated across the north. I was born and raised in Washington State. Also lived in Alaska. I'm a West Coast guy. I went to the University of Southern California. Only in
Any
my
thoughts
adult.
on Norwegian-U.S. relations? English-U.S.
No
relations?
thoughts.
None? Okay, just wondering. Okay.
Norway does their thing. They've got oil. They're just kind of a small, out of the way Northern European country. I'd like to go there someday.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as now that we're talking about ethnicity, there is one very interesting and very important point on the reparations issue that I wasn't really planning on rolling out now, but I kind of let the cat out of the bag last week or 2 weeks ago. I will say that I do see a disparity in how African Americans have the lot that they have suffered in this country since and including slavery. I think that reparations is actually a legitimate issue to look at. I think that the labor of enslaved people that was used to build wealth, including generational wealth, in this country is a debt, and I think that we need to address it. And there's no however here. But also think about this. The reason the reparation issue is always so racially divisive, and one side goes to one side of the room, the other side. There's something that we're not thinking about here. When Lincoln freed the slaves, Article 13, he also freed indentured servants. If you read the fugitive slave law, read the text of the act, and you will see that it doesn't even mention slaves. It mentions something something to the effect of people who are bound or bonded to work for another. Slavery is not mentioned by name. Indentured servants is a thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I have to ask though, right? Yeah. When you talk about reparations, which I appreciate, right? I do also, have similar viewpoints, but do you have any specifics, like a certain dollar amount or a certain plan or program? So yeah, what does that look like?
Here's my 10-second rollout. Reparations for the descendants of slaves, but also a 3/5 share of reparations for the provable descendants of indentured servants. Means tested for both sides. So I hope that makes sense to you. Think about it. Nobody has ever said it before that I'm aware of, but there's a lot of poor white people in this country, in Appalachia, all over the country.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I just had this thought just off the top of my mind. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yep. What do you do with, I think there was like some View lady who's like has a slave owner's like, DNA as well as a slave's DNA. So
it's a very different.
How do you do like, what do you do here?
Let me say, I am not a scholar on this topic. I just thought of the 3/5 compromise for reparations recently. I think it is a very good way to actually get reparations done. I think
they could still get it. I think it's very possible that they were sexually molested or something, right? Yeah, and that could have been the reason why. And that
I think this is definitely going to rest in viable DNA testing. I think that's very difficult to do, but clearly people think that we can do it. People think that if you can prove your lineage from a slave, I think similarly it's probably not the hardest thing to prove lineage from an indentured servant. Now, everybody out there is saying, no, why should white people get reparations? Well, for the reasons I mentioned, in the same way that black people worked for free, for no pay, built the wealth of these already wealthy families, etc., so too did the indentured servants. So this is why I put in a 3/5 compromise. So the number on the street is $20,000 would be a full share of reparations for the descendant of an African American. I would say and hopefully most people realize a 3/5 compromise goes right back to a similar fraction that our Congress decided when apportioning congressional seats in colonial America, in early America, I should say. So I think that's kind of a very interesting and appropriate fraction to use. So descendants of slaves would get 20 grand. Descendants of indentured servants would get 12 grand. I think that's a racially harmonious a way that we can do this that's not divisive. A way
I appreciate
that
that. I actually have to ask about this other thing. I actually hang out with a lot of people that have been wrongfully convicted. And actually, we often talk about the similarity of this particular issue to reparations. The thing is that right now, a lot of people know I'm actually quoting Vincent Moto, the first man freed on DNA evidence in Philly, Pennsylvania history. And he said, people know Texas for killing a lot of prisoners, which is true. Okay, but they're also number one in exonerations of prisoners. They also have one of the best compensation programs with $50,000 per year. I don't think that's really great, but $50,000 per year for a year of incarcerated. Now, Vincent Moto himself has never been compensated for his wrongful incarceration for 10 years, where he was freed on DNA evidence. So, hopefully we could help, get raised issue. But they see that as a kind of reparations as well, right? Yeah. So they're like, how can you talk about reparations?
I think people are over incarcerated, period. We see so many people in the clink for stupid things that become like not even that bad. I don't know, dealing weed or something like that. But
so you're the first one, right? Remember I asked about those 5 before. I asked those 5 people, those 5 issues, if you could support them. Now this is going to be the 6th, and you're the first one I ask on the 6th. I'm going to ask every candidate after this that question. Would you support compensation for the wrongfully incarcerated?
I would not only support that, I would probably maybe even fight for that in as much as the president has any control over that issue. And again, I'm kind of talking as a local guy rather than a presidential candidate. I apologize. But I also feel very strongly, for example, Houston, Texas. Something like 45% of the residents of Houston, Texas, have suspended driver's licenses. Almost always for failure to pay ridiculous. We've all been, I think, gotten parking tickets, and we see how the system works. How you don't have money, you get a ticket. Their $35 goes up to $350, goes to a warrant. You get arrested. These things happen to the best of us, including me, by the way. I had suspended licenses in my past, and I see how poor people are victimized by the criminal justice. It's not even criminal justice, it's traffic justice. I think small governments across the country, county, state, I think they have been given a toothpick of power, and I think they wield it like broadswords, particularly against poor people. And I think it's disgusting. I would like to see not only compensation for people unduly convicted, I would like to see an across the board, some sort of a jubilee, some sort of a moratorium, an end, a quashing of fines and fees and penalties that are keeping people away from being able to be productive citizens. People need to drive. If you live in Houston, Texas, you can't drive, you probably can't work. And where does that lead? It's the worst thing in the world, but I digress.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Actually, I want to shout out this guy, Michael Jacobs Allen. He says that thanks to you, he's no longer in student loan debt. I guess that's a success story. Do you
Yeah, and I salute Michael. And there was
what happened? How you maybe you could help me. What did he do? How did he get out?
We started the whole debate about student loan cancellation by executive order. While that never happened, and the reason I'm running for president is because Biden so bitterly disappointed us. We did light a fire under the Department of Education, and the Department of Education has finally started to cancel a few loans that by law or rule should have been canceled years or decades ago. So in Biden's first 3 years, we have seen $131 billion in federal student loan cancellation. That is nothing, by the way, to how quickly the loan portfolio grows. But nonetheless, some people like Michael have benefited from that. And so I'm glad what student loan justice has played towards giving real relief to real people. But I'm telling you, the lending system has got to go. We as a country should not be conquered and enslaved by debt, particularly by our own federal government. And I applaud Michael for even caring, when people get their loans canceled, the first thing they do is quit thinking about student loans. And so to hear Michael still engaged in this conversation is very, gives me great hope.
Yeah, I heard I think that my friend in California. I'm not sure what state you're from. What state are you from again?
I live in Wisconsin. Are you talking to me or Michael?
Oh yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah, I have another
Well,
friend
I
in
live in Wisconsin. Went to college in California. I was raised in Tacoma, Washington.
I have a friend right now in California. I think that they were trying to do is they were trying to make this. They said if it was a private loan in the state, that they would forgive it or something like that. Did you hear something about that law? They're trying to pass it like that.
No, what we've seen in California at the state level, and we've seen this in many states, is attempts to make the private lending companies more accountable. So transparency, and if the state attorney generals find violations of, say, the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act or the Truth in Lending Act, etc., then sometimes state attorney generals will sue the lenders, and rarely, but sometimes they are able to get fairly significant tranches of loans canceled. And that has happened with a few attorney generals. I think California may be one. There's been a few others. Pretty few and far between, though. There's not a lot that states can do on the federal student loan program. It's a federal program. This goes, and believe me, I would much rather run for governor or something than president, but only the federal government can really have a strong influence over federal student loans. That's just a fact.
Okay, so here I just ran through a series of he's quite a fan, and I do actually he's getting me hype, honestly, right? Yeah, he said that you challenged some lone wolves and forced them to respond. And honestly, I also have an online activist interview series where I ask them the question. I say, what do you think the most effective things activists can do? I know you have a long history of successful. Once again, that I hope that everybody goes out, and I'm gonna put it in the link and the comment description. That petition that he has, what do you say, 1.2 million signers or something?
1.2 million. Yep. There's no good reason we can't
That's
get it.
awesome.
Yep.
That's powerful. Yeah, to fight against student loans.
It was the strength of that petition was what got Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer to actually embrace the concept. So yeah, there's great
power in numbers. Doing it. I give you so much credit.
I'm telling you, people, you're not helpless out there. Waiting and watching and worrying and wondering what they are going to do on student loans. As long as you're not out there fighting, what they are going to do is screw you and put their own kids through a very expensive private college on your ass. That's what they are going to do as long as you are not fighting. I'm a student loan borrower, just like everybody else. There's nothing particularly special about me other than the fact I've been doing this for so long. And but I'm telling you, the power on this one resides in the people. We own this lending system. The power is with us. We can delete this lending system from existence if we, the people, decide that's what has to happen. So strength in numbers. And I hope everybody out there will tell every student loan borrower they know about our campaign. Collinge for president.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually. Do you know anything about that change to Nelnet? Recently, there was some kind of change to Nelnet or something.
There's been a huge number of changes. The entire student loan industry is essentially crumbling before our very eyes. And I could talk for hours and hours. It's the Wild West out there. Servicers are signing up and dropping out and signing up, and they're buying and selling private tranches of loans. They're doing various deals. There's new companies entering the fray. It's one big, pardon my friend. Well, I'm not going to swear. It's a cluster F.
It's like a shark. It's like a feeding frenzy, right?
Yeah, it's a feeding frenzy. And at the end of the day, the borrowers are on the menu. The student loan system has failed. It can't be continued. That's true. But this could get very ugly going forward because we've got all these shark companies. Nelnet, for example, owns a collection company that has a shark tank, literally a 4,000-gallon shark tank in its corporate headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana. Like, these are the types of people we're talking about. These are not good faith, patriotic people. These are scam artists, con artists. The founder of that company I just said just got out of prison, I might add. These are not good people that we're dealing with. And this is a battle that needs to be fought because Biden turned the loans back on. Bankruptcy remains gone from the loans. As long as that is true, the borrowers will be like fish in a barrel. Will be over a barrel, in a barrel, fish in a barrel.
They're ending public housing as we know it in this country. Do you have any particular opinions on that?
Oh, I've got some very radical, strong ideas for public housing. Quite frankly, I don't think we have enough time, and I haven't firmed up a plan, and I may not. I think that home ownership should be changed drastically so that there is home ownership opportunity for long-term Section 8 homeowners. I think there should be something where the Trumps and other welfare landlords in the world don't have this money machine. I think those apartments that they rent out that the government pays for, that money should be going towards ownership of that house. And ultimately that ownership should pass to the tenant.
There are some Sections 8s that are set up like that, but not all of them. But just
yeah,
so you know, yeah, they just ended Section 9 in this country, which is true public housing. But the thing is that that Section 9 here in New York, I don't know if in your state it might be true, but they actually made it so it could go to private ownership. So it's funny because one like avenue for exactly what you described just closed. Oh well.
And that's what the real estate tycoons are going to do as long as we let them. They're going to turn, well, they've already turned America into basically a never-ending ATM machine for themselves. We've got to stop that.
Hey, now actually, I want to get you in on this other plan right here, electoral reform. Remember how you were talking about the not-for-profit industrial complex? So let me tell you about something we're working here in New York. The thing is that we know that we have a lot of complaints about the election machines and this kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
What body controls whether they use machines or paper ballots? What body controls that? Do you know?
I think the states control how they run their election
systems. The state committee of whatever political power is in parties in power. Yep. Here in New York, it's the Democrats, and in another state, it'll be the Republicans.
Right.
So the thing is that by filling up this body called the county committee, we can gain control of the ballot control process and make sure it's run in a fair and transparent way. Another thing that this body does is that it's different in different states, but here in New York State, it controls the ability to run the selection for judges. Okay, so the thing is that these judges, if you want electoral reform, criminal justice reform, those are very good to have. Like, and the last thing they do is fully 1/3 of all elected officials in New York State are backdoored in through something called special elections. Someone leaves office early, right? Yeah. And the thing is that, okay, so usually this county committee, who's actually serving on the county committee, they keep this quiet as death. Yeah. It's the not-for-profit industrial complex.
Yeah.
These are the people that, by the way, okay, we open source this called something called Rep My Block. We have an open source voter data file. This is actually also, it has a direct link to the National Voter File Project. This is also a open source program on GitHub that you can run on your own server. So you don't have to worry about like us taking your data or anything like that. You can run this program independently. You can inspect the code, whatever you want. You can inject the voter database. That's free in many states, but remember that they won't offer the previous years. And this is what the consultants use, right? So we open this for free to the public, and here's where you can really benefit here, right? So the thing is that to get on the ballot, you need to have like people petitioning for you, right?
Right.
So if people run for this position, when they get the ballot signed up for themselves, they can also collect the ballot petition for you. You see what I mean? And then that way you might be able to just piggyback on some on this plan and then maybe qualify in a state here or there. I mean, New York is going to be extremely difficult. Okay.
Yep.
They raise the barriers really high here, but in other states, it's like very doable. And it would be cool to be on the ballot in some states, right?
I think that would be cool. Right now, I'm planning on being a complete write-in candidate. I'm telling people, bring your pen to the polls. I say break the machine. I think we need to go back to 1970s voting technology, quite frankly. But having access to voter rolls, I think that should be a public good. I don't think that should be the province of the parties or the state. I think every member of the public should be able to know who is on the voter rolls for sure.
Have you ever run for office before?
I have not. I have never run.
It would be a very good opponent. Like, I think maybe House of Representatives. I think maybe you could even Senate even. You have a very, very strong, better than a lot of these people are running now. I like you a lot better than.
Well,
I don't know about president. I think that's a tall ask, but I could really see you for real. House of Representatives, something like that. Real. Like, have you thought about it?
Not really. Public service never really interested me. It interests me in as much as it'll be useful for solving the student loan program problem. I don't know. I mean, check with me in 4 months. I'm really new to this, and come late summer, I should be clicking on all cylinders, and maybe my thoughts will have changed on it. But I can only tell people, if you have student loans, please just Google me, Collinge, Colli. Oh, you can see my name there. Google me, find me, and get in the game, because if you're not fighting it with us, with me, we're losing it.
Okay, last
question. I appreciate your kind compliments.
No doubt, yeah. Now we get to the end. What's the now that people know where to find your stuff, what do you have coming up in the future? You have any events coming up? We got the President's Day, presidential debate.
Yes, that's right.
Be part of. That's gonna be cool.
We have the President's Day debate. I'm looking forward to doing some hopefully pretty high profile interviews coming up, knock on wood. Mainstream media is going to be very difficult to cover, certainly my campaign. If you're not a DRNR, it can be very difficult. But I'm pretty hopeful.
DRNR?
I'm sorry? If you are a D or an R, then you have an in
I'm sorry, okay.
with the mainstream media. But if you're not part of that duopoly, it can be very, very tough to break in. So I'm going to play it by ear. As fundraising, I don't see that fundraising is incredibly important, but certainly we've got to raise at least enough to keep the lights on. I think Donald Trump won the presidency without doing much fundraising at all. I think it can be done. It just requires grassroots. Word of mouth is everything for this campaign.
If I could say this just right now, the thing is that Ross Perot, right? Yeah, even though he was a billionaire, he did not. Okay, what do people spend the money on, right? You could say ads and stuff like that, but what they really need is that ballot, right? That's really usually where they spend their money. The ballot. Yep. I know, I'm not.
Ross Perot spent $18 million to get on the ballots in most states. Robert F. Kennedy is probably going to have to spend something like double that just to get his name on the ballot. If you don't have the
money, a real true grassroots campaign can actually get someone like Alan on the Collinge on a bunch of states for real. For if there really is that, like a Jesse Ventura, something like that, right?
If we have a true grassroots really groundswell, if the people within the sound of my voice decide to take me seriously, we can make a serious dent. Certainly, even as a write-in candidate, we can win some states. There's only 9 states that you cannot write in candidates for. So I like my chances of write-in, but certainly if anybody has a check for $24 million they want to send my way, we can certainly get petitions signed. There's no shortage of people.
I might even arrange a meeting with you to talk about how this is actually existential crisis for Koreans. Our overeducation, our too much investment in education, and the cost of that, like on this generation, is actually causing a population collapse.
It's outrageous. We need to have
the end of my people, for real. They said for every 100 people, there's going to be 4 people in the 2 generations. That's a severe fall off.
Yeah, that's unsustainable.
100 to 4.
You've got to have educated people. College in Russia.
100 Koreans now, there's going to be 4. That's crazy.
That's outrageous. And I think nobody has to argue the value of a higher education. Some colleges are teaching
people say AI is a threat. These college loans are a threat. I swear to you. And the high tuition.
These student loans are stripping $100 billion a year in interest alone out of our consumer economy. It's 8.5.
It's restructuring a whole generation to start off their lives. And I really appreciate your work so much, man.
Yeah,
I know
we can talk for a long time. I can tell, but
well, actually, I have another interview coming up at 2, so I'm just kind of like ending it here. But I'll see you soon, actually, on President's
Day. See you on Monday.
Back right Absolutely. Here. Any last things you want to say? I really appreciate you. Sorry to your audience. Thanks for coming and check it out. Sorry about interrupting them, but
anyway, I love it, man. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My last word, Collinge for president.com, student loans. Tell everyone you know.
I'm a fan of your work, man.
And God bless America.
God bless. Thank you. All right. I'm just going to hit end stream. Any last words?